Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, what is going on, everybody? What is up? Welcome into the show. It is your host, Justin Perry, here with Big 3 for 3 for the Shot Quality Bets Podcast. Happy Thursday, Big 3. Good to see you. Welcome back to the show. How you been?
Not too bad, man. It's always interesting doing these podcasts on Thursday because there's not much to look ahead to on Friday, right? We've already probably capped the Thursday card, and it's already just getting ready for the 150 game Saturday slates, which is always a good time.
Yeah, and we do our best to bring everybody the information for those big Saturday slates early on Thursday. It does put us in a little bit of a weird spot. Of course, Thursdays themselves are crazy, right? We got 70 games tonight at the time of filming, so there's a lot going on. Maybe a quieter Friday, and then boom, like Big 3 here said 150 games. But we're going to bring in some help to break down a pretty big Saturday. We got that Big 12 SEC challenge. We got a lot of, almost everyone's playing. But from KeepBettingCo, we have CC here. CC, welcome to the stream. How you doing today, man?
Yes, sir. Can't complain. Thursday, this is a pretty dense board overall. I was surprised by the Thursday slate. So excited. Friday, always pretty boring, but a lot to talk about for tonight and Saturday overall. So it should be a fun video.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to get into it. I had both these guys bring us a game that they want to talk about. We'll get into that a little bit. But first, we're going to talk a bit maybe with CC about how he uses shot quality. And I'll let you take it over, CC. How has your season been? How have you been incorporating some of the shot quality metrics?
Yeah, so unfortunately, this has been probably my most probably one of the worst seasons I've had in any sport relative to. Oh, jeez.
Whoa.
Big three really did not like that. You're having a bad season, but I mean, look, it doesn't,
Yeah, it happens. So, like, knowing your back end process works, it's variance. It's gambling on sports. So, like,
right.
If you trust what you're doing, the back end's what matters the most. So, talk to B3. Significant amount of my time and the theory behind everything that I do, I know works. So, not really worried about it. But in short, like. Shot quality is a nice back end like check and balance of the stuff that I do on a daily basis. So it becomes useful in the sense of like even when you're down, it's nice to have somebody pat you on the back and be like, okay, like what I'm doing definitely isn't just throwing out outliers. Like I'm not finding numbers that the market or people in the market don't agree with. Like I'm beating the market. Shot quality agrees with my numbers, so I'm happy with it. Over time, over the course of enough volume, you're going to win. So I'm not too worried about it. It's been the season so far.
Yep. No, I think we've all been there, and something that a gambling mentor said to me once is that no gambler worth a damn doesn't have a cold streak, and it's just true. It doesn't have a bad season. Like everybody, like it's not possible to win every season. It's not possible to win every day. It's not possible to win every week. It's just we give the books plus 110 on every bet we take, right? So it is a tough hill to overcome. But you talk a little bit about that process. I wanted to share something that we're pretty excited about here at Shot Quality right now. Just really quickly, I'll pull it up on the screen here, and then we'll keep talking about that process a little bit because I'm interested to see some of the ways that you make this work. But something that we actually just brought up here on Shot Quality Bets is our new Twitter bot, and I wanted to just call some attention to this, whether you're listening at home or watching on YouTube right now. What we have on Twitter is our new bot that has a way to look at not only just what happened in a game, but what shot quality expected to happen, and only tweets when, shot quality says maybe that process was right, but the result was wrong, or maybe gives you that check against, I won my bet, but, I took ECU and they actually scored more points than expected. It might not have been the best reasoning. Maybe I need to actually question some of my winners, not only the losers. So I don't know, Big 3, you're a big proponent of that type of thinking. What do you make of this new bot? Have you used it? Have you seen any of the games you're betting yet?
Yeah, this is honestly like the Twitter version of the trend finder, right? Like a lot of us that are using the Shot Quality Bets site daily to cap are like looking at these, right? Like, okay, if I'm going to bet on ECU today, I want to see like how they've done the last 5 games. How I'm using that is if ECU's covered, let's use an even number, the last 6 games, if they've covered 3 of the last 6 games, but Shot Quality expects them to have covered 0 of them, in my eyes, like the market's overvaluing them, right? Like the market thinking that they're doing better than maybe we've expected them to do. And same thing can be said the other way. If they're 3-3 against the spread, Shot Quality has them 6-0. I'm probably thinking, okay, this team's being undervalued in the market, because if they were 6-0 against the spread, they probably would not be lined the same today. So it's kind of like the Twitter free version of that trend finder, which is really useful to look at in whole, right? Like to be able to see ECU's entire season as opposed to just the last game, but really cool tool.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, CC, how do you use those past results to quantify your actual play, or are you more someone who prefers to use like the expected metrics going forward? I do a bit of both. Like I always like look back at my card and see how it all would have gone if it was the shot quality scores that were graded instead of the actual results. But I do obviously use our metrics to rate games forward too, to understand and try to win more bets. But I don't know, how do you take advantage of the data, do you find?
Yeah, so I use it more in a metric way of explaining and understanding the result of my game. So, like example, the Tulane game or Tulsa game you brought up. If you beat the market, closing line value, you have closing line value there. You feel good on the bet no matter what. You beat the market, but at all times markets aren't efficient. Like if you're talking a Merrimack game, like they might not be as efficient as they are in a Syracuse versus Duke game. So just to say that overall closing line value is worth the end-all be-all of every single market is just not correct in most cases, I don't think. So the easiest comparison would be for me is baseball. So like the expected batting average is something that is used by a lot of people. Like if you hit a ball and it slips through somebody's legs, you got lucky. And so you can go back to expected batting average and say, hey, I got lucky here. I should have won that bet. And Shot Quality basically does that for basketball. So you can go to, I just got zoomed in, but you can go into Shot Quality and you can see like, hey, I got really lucky in this game. I got unfortunate. And if in most cases you're on the right side of that, the variance is going to work itself out. Like if you're getting on the side of the baseball games that have a 300 expecting batting average as an underdog, you're probably going to win more games than not. And in a basketball layman's terms, Shot Quality does that for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you put it really well. That's exactly what we're aiming to do, and that's what the expected metrics really drive home, right? Is that even when you have a bad game, you can still go ahead and look at, okay, what if things had gone, the maybe the average way? Maybe you took a team that had a really cold spell shooting, or maybe you just went up against someone that had a really hot spell shooting. I mean, both happen all the time. And I think we need to use our handicapping abilities to navigate between the games where variance just isn't with you. Like you're going to win some of those, you're going to lose some of those. It's actually like how you position yourself in the rest of the games where it's like up for grabs almost, where the variance doesn't massively favor one side. That's the most important. And some might say, oh, you need to try to identify those variance points, but that's impossible.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
I think a big thing for me is also tracking in a sense that and one thing that I think this is great for is if you don't track what happens in your previous results, you're never going to know. Like in your head, we just have this mental facade that you're always going to remember bad beats, but you're never going to remember the ones that you did have positive variance. You got really lucky. So it's always going to seem like this is gambling and it's against you at all times. You're going to remember that half court shot, that foul with 1 second, but you're not going to remember when you got a layup down 6 with 1 second left. Those don't stick in your head. So to be able to quantify numbers and say, hey, I've gotten lucky 6 times and I've had 6 bad beats is much more obtainable over the course of a season, a year, a decade.
Right.
This isn't a short-term game. You're going to have bad variance over the short term.
Well, I hope it's not a short-term game for anyone. I hope we're all here for the long term and have the returns to do it. And Shot Quality Bets is definitely out here to make that as possible as we can, right? We have a lot of different tools, all these standings, different aspects of the game that are developed through a unique algorithm that doesn't necessarily take into account which baskets are made, which lucky shot. We know which shots are necessarily a little bit more lucky and which ones aren't, in the sense that we rate everything on the efficiency of the offense that is created, not necessarily, even the efficiency, the expected efficiency, right? So good shots are weighted better than bad shots, regardless of if they go in. Can't speak today. This is literally, guys, I've been on this is my 3rd show in the last 15 hours. So I definitely apologize. Been hammering home with the content. Yeah. We're just doing what we can out here, grinding away. It is the heart of college basketball season. And I'm going to use that to go right into our games that we're going to talk about today. Big 3, I wanted to give you a chance to bring up a game to talk about for Saturday. I know you were looking at one over in your favorite, I think I'm trying to get these Western ones right. This is the Summit, right?
Yep, this is the Summit.
Hey,
It's tough, man. There's a lot of these random conferences, especially with all the realignments and stuff going on now. Have been tough. But yeah, I'm looking ahead to this South Dakota State at Western Illinois game on Saturday. This is a spot that I'm looking to take South Dakota State at. I think it's probably going to be it's going to be anywhere between like a pick 'em to like maybe -2. I'd even probably take it even up to -3. What I really like about this game, so South Dakota State is a team that historically shot quality doesn't really like. They rely on a high amount of made threes essentially. So they yeah, this is going to be for tonight. You're going to have to go to the matchup.
This is the wrong one. Yeah, you're right. Oh,
yeah,
but look.
So there you go. Yeah, but
nice.
We have South Dakota State here by almost 8 points. I think 8 points ish. And it's a spot where I think you're probably going to get a -2. Like I said, shot quality, knowing something about the teams or kind of about how shot quality works is really good to help kind of interpret some of these numbers too. And that's some of the stuff that's like also built into the model beyond just shot quality. So South Dakota State relies on like making shots. Essentially, they rely on making a lot of threes. Defensively, they're not super strong. It's kind of the same type of thing. They have to like essentially outscore you is the way that they're winning these games. And shot quality has not loved them offensively this year. They have, I don't know, like a lot of their expected scores are lower than they've actually scored in the game. But yeah, as you can see, they excel at shot making. And so this is something that I just think like this team is built around making threes, essentially making shots. And that's how they're staying in these games. And so it's something that's pretty tough to quantify.
I mean, they're the number one team in off the dribble 3-point percentage rate. They take the frequency of the off the dribble 3-point is 27%. Literally, I would imagine like not many teams are closer in terms of the frequency.
Western Illinois gives up the second most off the dribble 3-pointers. Right?
Yeah, interesting. Yep. Let's pull up those right now. And for everyone who's listening on Spotify, we are always here on YouTube, streaming the show, showing the website, showing some of the stats. And yeah, look, that is crazy. The off the dribble 3 for Western Illinois is their 351st in shot quality points per possession allowed to off the dribble 3, and they face it at the 83rd highest clip. So, that's pretty high. They allow a lot of threes.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say here is like this South Dakota State team with Baylor Shireman last year was like everyone's favorite team to bet on. I think they had 5 losses. Shot quality expected them to have 12 or 13 losses that year. It was just something because they were such a great shot making team. I think they led the country in 3-point percentage. It's just hard to wrap shot quality around that. But I will say, like, if you look at their last like 4 or 5 games this year, like they're playing a lot better. They had a stretch where, they covered against Alabama. I think they lost by like 13, which honestly is almost as close as anyone's playing Alabama these days. And then they
shout out Mississippi State though.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Really weird, like games where they lost to Oral Roberts by 40, and now all of a sudden they're kind of starting to figure it out here. And I think, like, to me, Western Illinois is just kind of a tier below. South Dakota State ran everyone out of this conference this year. Obviously no Shireman anymore, but their guards are really talented. They can shoot the ball. I mean, they shoot the ball really well still, even with struggling this year. And I think that this is another spot where you're playing on the road at Western Illinois, who doesn't have much of a home court advantage regardless. So you're catching probably a too generous of a home court advantage tack on here for Western Illinois. So yeah, I like South Dakota State. Anything else?
Have we seen the line? Have we seen any expected line there? Is it?
It's gonna, like, Ken Palm has it. South Dakota
Western
State.
Illinois.
South Dakota State -1 is what Ken.
Yeah, that's probably what you're going to get. This is going to be really close. So yeah, probably like a big 4 or 5 point edge. CC, what do you make of a game like this? How do you deal with teams that are maybe like that line up like this, where South Dakota State does the thing that Western Illinois can't defend? Or do you have a take on this game? Do you like a side?
Yeah, I have an issue with South Dakota State overall. Just the way that they play basketball. It's more just like it doesn't fit into my personal notion of how a team should play basketball. So they're 355th in the nation in offensive rebounding percentage. It's due to the fact that they shoot so many off the dribble threes. 356, right. Yeah. staring at Ken Palm numbers. So
yeah, no.
I'm
It's
sure
I mean, that's probably a rounding error. So no worries, no worries.
Yeah, so like we're talking about a team who just can't get offensive rebounds. Second chance points are some of the easiest points you're going to get in basketball. So like if they could, I'm sure their shot quality number would be significantly better. Like these in front of the rim shots and the ability to get to the free throw line. The thing is here is this isn't a team that can't shoot. Like if you've played basketball, you know the kids that can shoot can hit free throws. They're third in the nation, averaging almost 81% free throw rate. These are kids that can shoot. They are built and brought into the system to shoot the basketball, and that's why their three-point rate is typically so good, but this year it just hasn't been. And as B3 says, they've cleaned up a lot. I bet on this over in the North Dakota game, and I thought that it was the most miserable bet I've ever watched in my life. I saw stretches of 6-7 minutes of offense where they would just come down the court. They set it's like a volleyball line 3-point screen that they have full intent on shooting off of, and within like 4 or 5 seconds of the shot clock. And that makes sense if you're trying to get the backside rebound, but like there's not even people there. I just don't understand this basketball team. That said, B3 and I have had a conversation about this idea of weak home court advantage, and I think you've talked about it on the show before, but I don't believe that Western Illinois should be worth nearly as many points as they're getting. I don't have the number in front of me, but do y'all know what the number for the South Dakota State game was when they played on December 29th? I would imagine.
I can find it out. I can look it up. Let's use the trend finder. Let's see. The South Dakota State game or the Western Illinois?
South Dakota State. They were playing each other.
So they played
December 29th.
I can just look at the date. Nice. Let's go back here. December 29th. Here it was. So the closing spread was 8.
So you're going from what? South Dakota State by 8. Now they're going to be a 1-point favorite. Or is the differential in courts? Is the differential in courts worth 7 points? In conference play, like in Iowa State, in Duke, in these games, I would say probably so. But I don't imagine that Western Illinois is going to be crazy enough to justify and quantify these kind of numbers. It happens tonight in the South Dakota Western Illinois game as well. And I just think that this is sports books are built on this idea of this is what home court advantage is. It doesn't go outside of this, and we're not going to change it. And so I do think that you're getting value on a South Dakota State team on the road. I hate that they're going to shoot so many threes on the road. I do think that that's kind of a stickler towards like the home court advantage idea. I wish they were a paint-driven team, but I do think this. And I talked to B3 on the phone about this the other day, and it's an idea that I like to use a lot. I'm sorry that I'm rambling on, but
no, this is what you're here to do. You're here to ramble, dude. Go on.
If both teams were on a neutral court with no coach, and you just had 5 guys on each side standing in a gym with no players, no nothing, playing pickup basketball, and you look at these two five-guy lineups, which one are you taking? And every single time you take South Dakota State starting 5.
Yes.
And I don't think it's close. And so to get 1 point, I don't think it's an issue.
I like that you said no coach. That's funny. I always say like on a neutral court, but like neutral court and no coach is a nice little nuance there. I tend to agree. I like the South Dakota State team. I do think that Western Illinois is a little bit underrated in some of the efficiency markets right now. But I still think that in terms of how this matchup is going to come down to it, Western Illinois is going to have some trouble. And, we talk a little bit about the weaker home court advantage. If anyone out here, uses the model, we have an interesting opportunity every time we have this podcast to talk to someone who had, the biggest part in creating it. Big 3, would you say that the ShotQuality Bets model approaches home court different than a lot of the models out there?
Yeah, it's much less generous home court to all teams, honestly, but especially these lower conference teams. And like CC said, like this is something that I've kind of been on for a while. And if you look at a lot of my cards, it's a lot of away teams. And I think
a lot of away favorites are winning.
It's pretty easy to come. Yeah, away favorites were really good last week, especially
right because the home court isn't as bad as it's supposed to be. Right.
Exactly.
So they're getting softer lines.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely exceptions to the rule, right? Like you watch like Duke at Clemson, and it's like, okay, this home court is worth maybe 4 points, but then you watch some of these games that CC talked about it, like he goes to UAB games all the time, and UAB's home court is worth almost 4 points or something like that. On a lot of models.
We haven't packed out a stadium since 2004.
There you go. So it's just like, it's kind of insane to think, like, obviously there's more factors than just fans, right? Like new environment, whatever. But a lot of times you're shooting around in the stadium like the day before, morning of, whatever. Like, I think it's just accounted for too much. And it's like, when you have the opportunity to take what I would call a significantly better team at -1 just because it's at Western Illinois, like, I am very happy to do that. And the last thing I'll say here too is, like, look at the buildup. Just like knowing that the market overreacts is a big reason that I really love this trend finder tool too, right? Look at the game before South Dakota State, Western Illinois. You lose by 39. I mean, obviously they're +9, but they lost the game by 39, should only lost by 13. And then that's how you go into this last Western Illinois game last time. So -8 has to just be like the most conservative possible line here on South Dakota State, coming off a 40-point loss, right? So, and then you look at what they've done the last 4 games, which is mainly outperform expectations. Obviously, a 1-point loss on the spread against St. Thomas there, but they've played well since that point. And so to get even the 7-point swing that you talked about, CC, is probably not, I mean, it's probably like almost an 8-point swing that we're seeing here if South Dakota State actually opens -1, which is just insane to me.
I hope they do. I really do. That'd be great. I think we'd all have a nice little agreement bet. So if you're hearing this out there tomorrow on Friday, trying to look for a line that comes out, maybe Friday evening, definitely go ahead and take a peek for that South Dakota State line. I mean, -1, it's just, again, it's giving too much credit to shifting the court to the weaker team's favor.
Sorry, I want to move on too, but
yeah,
we'll see if we can talk about this game more than anyone else in the country, because I'm sure we're already there. But will you pull up Western Illinois' trend finder really quick, Justin?
Sure.
Another thing about the site that I like to do before I bet really any game is check out both teams. Look at the Western Illinois last 3 games. So just scroll down here even. North Dakota, who is probably the worst team in the Summit League, beat them by 12. ShotQuality had them losing by 7. St. Thomas beat them by 4. ShotQuality has them losing by 4. UMKC beat them by 8. ShotQuality has them losing by 8. This is 3 games in a row. Western Illinois has won, but ShotQuality has expected them to lose outright and not cover any of them. Even, I guess one was 2 points, but even within 5 points, I was going to say. But this is a team that it is so reasonable to think, wow, the market is way too hot on this team right now. And you probably saw it on the value finder if you're watching right now, but we have South Dakota State winning by 6 or 7 tonight, and they're 5.5-point underdogs. There is a reason for this. The market is thinking that, Western Illinois is winning and covering. Western Illinois is winning and covering, just game after game. And ShotQuality says, no, they're losing these games outright. This is why we're seeing a lot of value opposite of Western Illinois right now, and it makes a lot of sense. So I just wanted to point that out too.
No, I like that. And that's an important thing to go ahead and do. Check out how these teams are, especially looking, right? And the trend finder is great. If you haven't used the trend finder yet, what it is, it's one of our premium tools. You can essentially use it like any other trend finder where, you want to see how teams do as underdogs with the lines from 0 to 20. And maybe you want to know it's a high scoring game when they're expected over 150 points. Well, thing is, what sets this apart is that, we have the shot quality scores. So you can instantly find the value between, shot quality's expected metrics and what's actually going on the court. So Western Illinois, let's just say, I bring it back to everything and I just go to the conference, right? So they're 6-3 ATS in the conference, and that's exactly what's expected. So you aren't necessarily seeing anything crazy. But I don't know, maybe they're going to be around that close game, and you want to say, all right, what about if they're between, a bucket either way? So they've actually covered both of those small spreads in the conference, but, only one of them was expected to. You can unclick the conference, you can ask them if it's away, and you can go even further. So there's a lot that you can do with this tool. One of the coolest things we've made this year, we're going to continue refining it. We're going to be adding some new time management. So you could do last month, last week versus these types of teams. And we're really excited about this one. But before we have to get going, let's let CC talk about the game that he brought up. I mean, Albany versus Maine. What an interesting one to choose. We're not going to rib you too hard. What are you seeing in this one? I'll pull up Albany's numbers to start. Maine's been a team that I personally like to bet on. Are you taking a side? I think you like the total, right?
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that not only did I choose this game, I chose this game quick. Like you texted and like there wasn't a thought. It was
Yeah.
you said
knew.
what game? I said Albany, Maine. Is that cool with y'all? And, yeah. So the main thing here is I have faded Maine's ability to score the basketball probably too much this year. It's done well for me for the most part, but then in games like the Ohio State game, it shows that their defense also really sucks. What did they score? Ohio State scored 95 on Maine. So it was a game I took the under. It just was not happening. The main thing here is I think that Maine's defensive metrics are much better than we've seen. As shot quality shows, they have been a really good under team to the shot quality number. And I actually, before I asked this, did not look at this number. I've just watched an embarrassing amount of Maine basketball. And so just knowing that Maine has played under their metrics, I think their defense is actually pretty decent. They've gotten beat up. What is it? So I see from the eyeball test.
343rd in offense and 131st in defense. Yeah, it's just these lines are a little.
Yeah, so 131st in adjusted defense shot quality. KenPom, who we know makes the markets for a lot of these just crap games, has a defense at 305th in the nation. So you're talking almost 200 spots off. And I agree, significantly higher to the 131 range. I think this number is pushed due to some games like Ohio State, who just beat the brakes off this team. Nebraska, who scored 80. NJIT played an overtime game where they scored 91. So we see these games that teams that are significantly better did beat the brakes off of them. But the games that weren't, like they held Binghamton to 57. And I think that shows more of what you're going to get from this team. They play decent defense. And on the other side, Albany is just poo. They want to slow the ball down on offense. They don't have the ability to slow the ball down on defense. Teams are the average possession length on defense is 17 seconds. So that's 51st in the nation. So teams are just running through Albany because they suck. The issue, Maine doesn't really care to run the ball that much. So I think you see a pace naturally slower than the market's giving them. This is 143 per KenPom. We'll see what it opens. I made it 132. And so there's a lot of leeway there. I think
we have 131.
Yeah.
So the shot quality projection is Albany 67.2 to Maine 63.7, 130.9 expected points. So we agree with you.
Yeah. And so that is my spot. I would say the under. I think that Maine probably wins this game in most cases. I'm surprised to see y'all having a 4-point. I'm going to have to smack around B3 for that. But interesting. And I like the under there.
I like it. I like this Maine team a lot. They've been a fun one. There are always teams every year that are sort of like plagued by last year's memory, that people just think they're terrible, and Maine was terrible last year. But they've really picked it up defensively for sure. It's been fun to watch and profit off of. I have the trend finder for them here. Again, they are 11-6-1, 12-6 on the shot quality ATS. So they are doing better than what Vegas is selling you on Maine. So a fun team to follow. Fun team to bet on. I mean, and we can use the trend finder here. I have this, again, I wish I had the ability to look at like dates, because like the American East here, I feel like the home teams in conference are doing a little better. Yeah, nothing crazy, and probably should like take out them being like underdogs or something, but like it doesn't really help. But yeah, it's like they seem to be overperforming. Like, and that's an interesting take on this. And I don't know, Big Three, your take when you see something like this, like home favorites in conference in the American East are 12-10-1, but shot quality expects 8-15. So that means they're overperforming, right? So now, do you necessarily default to saying, all right, I'm going to expect progression to the mean, or do you say like, okay, maybe, we can't quantify how much easier it is for this conference to be playing home games? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to be
two sides of the coin, right?
Yeah, you have to be careful with like sample size too.
Of course.
I think like the biggest thing, especially when you're looking at a conference here that's like maybe 10 teams, right? Like sample size for each team is maybe like 2 or 3. I do think there's value, and I think like people miss like knowing that the market is reacting to certain things is where our edge comes, right? So like you look at Western Illinois, even though they're 3-3 against the spread, like in conference play, like the fact that they've covered their last 3, even though shot quality says they shouldn't have, like that's significant, and it's like, okay, the market's probably thinking that they're moving up, getting better when they're really not, like it's things like that where you have to take into context. For me, looking at the conference as a whole, it's kind of hard to like take into context like where the market might be over adjusting.
Yeah,
but I will
right.
say too, another thing to back up CC here, if you go back to Maine's team page, could you do that, Justin? One of the things
I got you.
When I look at like over unders is finishing at the rim. So finishing at the rim is essentially like the most popular frequency, like in general, like that's what most teams are doing. If you look at Maine offensively, they're one of the worst teams in the country. If you can zoom in there, Justin, they're one of the worst teams in the country, 354th in the country at finishing at the rim. Defensively, they're the 11th best, I think it says, right?
Defending
11th
it, yeah, they are. That's crazy.
Defending shots at the rim, which is just insane that Maine, like they're a team built for unders, essentially, right? Like finishing at the rim, which is what most teams are doing and which is most teams' most efficient shot, is they're terrible at completing it on offense and awful at
They take mid-range shots too, yeah.
So it's kind of crazy. And I think, like CC said, if this is anything near 140, I would be pretty excited about it under as well.
We got another play for the podcast. So anyone listening at home, a nice potential under, making it 130, 131, 132 or something in that range. Hoping we get a nice 140 line to bring home a bunch of that value. But I love how much those stats stick out. And you know, the shout out to the Shot Quality Bets designers who make these colors so easy to understand. Right. It's just easy to see off the dribble 3-point. This team is one of the best at defending it. And they're so good at defending it that people don't end up doing it. So they limit their opponents to the most they stop their opponents from taking the most valuable shots, and they don't take valuable shots themselves, and they're not good at finishing at the rim. They miss their layups, and they don't rebound, right? So especially not on the offensive side, they have a really bad offensive rebounding team. So that, you know, they don't extend possessions. They, you know, both teams are running up and down the floor a lot in games that Maine is playing, and that's exactly what you want. You want those extra % of the clock dripping away. But, you know, look, speaking of the time coming to a close, it's about that time where we close off the podcast and hang around for a couple minutes to talk about tonight's card. So I just wanted to let everyone know who's listening on Spotify or just hanging for the podcast content. Thank you for tuning in. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Helps us grow as a channel. We'll be bringing on other great guests like CC, but CC, I just wanted to let you know that, well, not let you know. I want to have the people know where they can find you if they want more of your great analysis. So why don't you tell the people at home where to follow you?
Yeah, it's on Twitter at KeepBettingCo. I interact with these too, so I'm sure you can find my stuff pretty easy. It's at KeepBettingCo as posted on the screen.
Awesome. Yep. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll be hanging around to talk about tonight's bets on YouTube. So if you want to check that out, go peek at that for Thursday. But this is again for this Saturday. Thank you all for coming in for the Shot Quality Bets podcast. See you on Monday. Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. So now, you know, to shake it off a bit, we're a little more casual now. I don't know. I know Big Three only has a few more minutes here to chat. So for the people at home who are maybe watching for tonight's picks, Big Three, is there anything you're really eyeing?
Yeah, one of my favorite ones tonight is Montana on the road at Sacramento State. Once again, road team for insignificant home court advantage, I guess. But I really like Montana. I got like +2 and the money line earlier.
Nice.
And this is something that I think is still available pretty much everywhere. But Montana is one of these teams that defensively is really good. And Shot Quality has them 170th defensively. You watch what they've done to some of these teams, like a South Dakota State is a great example. They give you very few easy shots. And Sacramento State, who is not super strong offensively, I think is just really going to struggle. And I think like one of the biggest things is Sacramento State gets a lot of shots at the rim with how Montana plays defense and kind of like some of the help side stuff that they do. I just really think that, I mean, Sacramento State has a lot of size, but I think that they're going to struggle getting to the rim at all. And I think that Montana honestly is just the better team all around. Like offensively, they've started to use Deshaun Thomas, who is the Colorado State transfer who started on that Colorado State team last year. Started to use him much better. They played Montana State really tight, who I think is consensusly like the best team in the conference. And so they're playing a lot better. Lost a game at home last second shot, Weber State. I just like a lot of things haven't really fell their way at the end of these games that I think is causing them to like continue to be undervalued. And I think as they go on the road here against a much worse team, I think getting them at anything plus money is a good look for sure. I also think the under is angle.
Nice. CC, any agreement there? Another play you like for just the people who are still hanging, the real ones out there?
Yeah, B3 and I's opinions on most things are going to be the same because we talk theory a lot, and I'm a big proponent of theory.
We like theory.
I think it's easily the most important part of all of this, and that's why we can go on tangents pretty fast. But I have a different one. I do like the Montana angle, but one that is pretty nasty and shot quality doesn't entirely agree with. But the Merrimack over 118, I believe it's 120 at this point. And I know what you're thinking if you watch the Merrimack game, like what the hell are you thinking? They're 362nd in the nation in effective field goal percentage. They're miserable. If you've watched them, they're awful. But they do a couple things that I like. Jordan Miner is a good basketball player. He is an actual real-life good basketball player. The rest of their team, for the majority of this season, has sucked. But they do have pieces coming together at this point. Bennett is, 15th in the conference. 15th in the nation in shooting percentage of the conference play. They have a couple pieces just starting to hit shots at the right time. I don't even want to try to say this guy's name. But in short, the pieces that were missing shots all season are starting to hit shots. So you're getting graded for a team that lost 9 in a row to start the season and was miserable. And for good reason, they have sucked. But they're 299th in the nation in tempo, 190th in offensive possession length. So this isn't a team that should be in the teens. There's only, I would say, at max 4 teams that should ever be in the teen range because there's a shot clock. There's a reason that this number cannot get lower. North Texas, Virginia deserve teens. That's fine if they get teens versus a team that's slow, whatever. There's a couple teams like a Montana 2 years ago. I know it was really slow. There's another team I'm missing off the top of my head, but you get the point. There are teams like this number should never go this low, and it's shown like historically. If a game is in the teens, usually it goes over. It's like anything under 116 goes over like at a 60% clip at close or something crazy. So I just think this number's too low. Central Connecticut kind of sucks as well. So I am plugging my nose and betting this, but I bet the 118 and hope for about a 121 game. It's going to be down to the wire either way, but I think 118 is a floor.
Yeah, I love the plugging your nose idiom, and it is a lot of how we end up having to make some of our best bets, right? Like you're not always going to walk into your favorite bet and feel great about it, but it's like you need to almost go against like what the market's like trying to create that feeling around the narrative a bit, offering a 118. Oh, it's going to be so slow, trying to get people to bite underneath that number that just shouldn't happen. I love it. And I hope it hits for everyone who's sitting here hanging out tonight. We're going to jump. I know Big Three's got to run. CC, man, really great having you on the show. We will definitely be having you back. Thank you for the awesome analysis. For everyone who's hanging out, appreciate y'all. We will be back Monday doing the same thing again, chatting it up, chopping it up, little college basketball for you. Go check out ShotQualityBets.com if you are not already a member. You can always hang in my DMs, try to talk to me a little bit. I'll probably give you a discount if you're really into it. But hey, thanks for chilling, and we will catch you next time on the Shot Quality Bets podcast. I'm your host, Justin Perry.